in the 17th Amendment, the Senate was appointed by the representatives that were sent to D.C. And now we vote for the senators. The forefathers said that was a bad idea. Why? Because the senators would then be subject to the very same re-election issues that the representatives were subject to. And it allows corruption. Now, I'm just summarizing these things real brief. You're going to have to do your own searching and your own research to get all of the facts. But the fact of the matter is they were absolutely right. Because today, we've got 100 years later, we have a Senate that is absolutely corrupt. The Senate is a major issue or player, if you will, in our electoral college. You say, well, I want to vote for my senators. I want to have that power. You have that power when you vote for the representative that goes to the office to appoint the senator, which is how it used to be, so that they would do the things according to law based only by the pressures of law, not by the pressures of public opinion. That was the whole buffer that we did away with in the 1913s. See, these are one of the amendments that we need to get rid of because in the last 100 years, we can see the demise and the corruption that the forefathers told us back in those little nuggets in 1776 that was going to happen if we didn't do certain things. And we denied that. We're like the little spoiled brat that doesn't want to do what mom and dad say. And we changed it, and now we're suffering for it. Because if the senators were appointed by the representatives, you say, well, that representative may not do what I want to do. Well, that goes back to these people we have in public office who are getting elected and are doing whatever they want to do, whatever their agenda is, instead of doing the expressed will of the people. This is why our representatives are coming from all different districts scattered all over the United States. And you know what, folks? When we send a state representative to represent us and they don't do the expressed will of the area that they have been sent from, doesn't mean everybody's going to get their way, but it means the majority ideology of that area is going to be expressed in that platform at DC. If they don't do that and they move on their own agenda, then we need to run their ornery hides out of their office. Because the whole point of being in public office is not so you can push your personal opinions and agenda. It goes right back to these justices on the bench. It is so you can operate as a representative of the people who have sent you to do their bidding. And we've got so far away from that. That's the reason why our government is so corrupt. We've allowed these electoral positions in. We've allowed money and power and influence to sway people. And it goes right back to the very beginning. Man wants his own way. And these simple things are going to be very painful to change now. And the question is this 80s generation, because it's on us, are we going to bite the bullet? Are we going to pay the price? Are we going to do what it takes to recorrect the compass that we're on? Or are we going to let it keep going the direction it's going? Because the way it's going is heading us to destruction. I don't care if you got a Republican or a Democrat in that president seat. The rest of the system has allowed to become so corrupt. We proved it with Trump up there trying to totally disrupt everything. Whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him, you got to admit, he went in there to make changes to the system's status quo, and look what happened. It wouldn't have mattered which direction he was trying to make the changes. The same results would happen, because the Democrats sound just like the Republicans when they're on the opposite end, that the Republicans sound like the Democrats when they're on the other end. Nothing's changed because we're not moving in a corporate direction with the expressed will of the people, willing to admit that we don't always get our own way. But what is best for the nation is still what's best for the nation. Contrary to Mr. Claiborne, what was good for the nation in 1776 was good for the nation in 1976, and it is still good for the nation in 2026 if we make it to that point. I don't know that we will, but God willing, we will. And another thing that the 1913 generation did, being we're on all that, is they're the ones that brought in the income tax thing. We didn't have income tax before that. We had other ways the government made money, and you know what? They did just fine. But now we have this income tax that ought to be done away with because it's actually unconstitutional. If you listen to some of those old guys from 1776 like Mr. Hamilton, and you listen to his arguments about how income ought to be generated into the Federalist Papers in our government, you'll see the things that he's talking about makes perfect sense. And he knew what was going to take place if the income tax type thing that we have today took place. And guess what? We're doing exactly the things that he said was going to happen. And the divisions in our nation that he said we would have, guess what we have? Those same divisions. These men were very smart when it came to human nature, not necessarily the letter of law. But they had come to a place where they had read the same books, they had studied in the same places, even though they came from multiple different areas and multiple different generations, which by the study of that leads me to the Word of God, which says God only leads one way. And if we are all searching for the absolute truth, we will all come to the same conclusion. But however, if we want our own agenda, there is multiple conclusions that will be drawn, and division lies in that bed. So there we are on my rant. I'm trying not to get on those rants, but there it is anyway. I'm working on getting some guys together and doing some interview processes here, and that's really what I'm wanting to mainly get focused on. But I'm hoping I've spurred you up today to do a little bit of your own research. Do some reading on the Reese committees and some of the things that they did back in the late 40s and the early 50s in our government, and they're still doing it. It's not anything new. They've dissolved the committee, of course, but the practices are still going on, and we also have to understand that the practices were going on before that, or they wouldn't have had a need to develop the committee. Hello. So anyway, we're going to try to get some folks together and do some interviews. We're going to try to talk about the Word of God. We're going to try to talk about different ones with doing business practices in this area and how all of this nonsense is running rampant in our societies, affecting them and their bottom line to feed their families and start new businesses. Some of them have been in business for a long time. Visited with a pastor of local church here the other day, and he said he'd be willing to come on and we'll discuss some of these things. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to progressing this blog and podcast to the next level. I really appreciate your support. Hope you continue to push that follow me button so that you'll get updates when these links come on. And until then, we'll see you on the pod.